Hi class, welcome to Module 4.4, Citrus Arthropods, where we're going to talk about citrus aphids, whiteflies, and scale insects. We're going to start off with aphids, which are super common in our backyard citrus. Aphids, also known as plant lice, are injurious to young trees and can cause severe leaf curling on new growth, particularly in the fall. They'll also show up on older trees on the young, tender, new growth. 5 different species of aphids are found on citrus: the green citrus aphid, the cotton aphid, the melon aphid, the black citrus aphid, and the green peach aphid. All aphids feed with piercing, sucking mouth parts, and they excrete the excess sugars, which is known as honeydew, which also can grow sooty mold, and we have a good picture of that coming up. Aphids can be recognized by a pair of tiny tubes located on their rear ends from the abdomen, and these are called cornicles. Only aphids have these. So if you're out there looking at your plants and you have a hand lens or a magnifying glass, you might be able to see these structures. The feeding of aphids on foliage causes leaves to roll, curl up, and become disfigured. This is usually on the young, tender growth, both in the spring and the last flush of growth on the trees in the fall. And it's usually that pale green growth, and you'll notice the leaves are kind of curled in on themselves, just like this. So this is the green citrus aphid, and you can see on the right some new growth that's very tender. It hasn't hardened off at all, and those aphids are feeding and causing the leaves to curl in on themselves. Next, we have whiteflies. And whiteflies also have piercing, sucking mouth parts in both the nymph and the adult stages. The eggs are laid individually by the whiteflies and are usually yellow when they're laid, and they turn kind of dark and black before they are ready to hatch. The nymphs are clear when they first hatch and gradually change colors as they mature depending on the species, and there's several species of whiteflies. The eggs usually are laid on the underside of the leaf surface, and the nymphs develop there where they're protected. The nymphs develop through 3 different instars before they pupate, and they also can make black sooty mold a problem on your trees, as they will secrete honeydew as well. And here we have the whitefly nymph and the eggs and the adult. And usually if you walk past your tree or you brush your hands over your tree and you get a cloud of these whitefly adults, you know you have a whitefly problem. They're easily disturbed and easily scared. Mealybugs are soft, flat, oval, distinctly segmented, and covered with a white mealy wax that makes kind of like little spikes along the abdomen and posterior end. The citrus mealybug has a yellow-orange body covered with a powdery wax. The wax spikes are not very long on the abdomen or the posterior. Female mealybugs can lay several hundred eggs within 10 to 20 days, and they're also attached to the plant in sort of a waxy egg sac. There are 2 to 3 overlapping generations in a year, so they can become an issue very quickly, and they overwinter as eggs or in various stages, weather permitting. An egg is more likely to survive into the spring in a harsh winter, where sometimes adults and nymphs can make it to the springtime in a very mild winter. Since they feed continuously, they excrete the excess sugary plant fluids into the plant and onto the plant, and that results in the sooty mold as well. So that's the common thread between these 3 insects. They all have piercing, sucking mouth parts, and they produce sooty mold when they secrete that honeydew. Here we've got our mealybugs, and this is a really nice little section showing several of them in between 2 fruits. It's a nice sheltered place. And then we have clusters of them there on the plant twigs as well. And you can see why they're called mealybugs. They have a mealy, waxy appearance. Next up, scale insects. We have several scale insects that will go for citrus trees. They have piercing, sucking mouth parts as well, and they feed on the cell sap and also secrete that honeydew, which can result in sooty mold. So if you're seeing sooty mold on your trees, it's usually one of these 4 things. There are armored scales and soft scales, and in the armored scale category, we have the Florida red scale, yellow scale, purple scale, Glover scale, and citrus snow scale. The softer scales are the cottony cushion scale and the Florida wax scale. And here we have a nice assortment of what these scale insects look like. They're usually attached to the plant kind of in a way where they're hard to dislodge, and they don't move. Once they're mature, they're somewhat immobile. So it's usually the younger generations that you see moving. Those are the mobile life cycle part. And here we have our sooty mold. So all of these arthropods that are secreting the honeydew onto our plants always put the plant at risk of developing this sooty mold. And this will wipe off. You can wash it off with some dish soap and a kind of rag. I've done that plenty of times, but this is usually an indication that you have some sort of sucking, piercing insect infestation on the tree. This is a secondary thing, not the primary cause of your tree's decline. So how do we manage all these arthropods? You have several options: malathion 57, the Vendex 50, and an ultrafine horticultural oil. Many times a horticultural oil will work quite well on all of these arthropods because it smothers them, and you can save the other two products for more infestations or heavier population control. Systemic insecticides such as imidacloprid also work on these as well. Be sure if you see any of these arthropods or sooty mold on your trees to show us a picture on the discussion board. We want to see what's going on.